Okay, so we're back with hour 3. We've dealt with linking files or embedding files with include require. What we want to do this hour is I want to look at error handling. So, you have a question?
Yeah, just a couple of questions.
Sure.
Which functions custom require or include?
Which is faster? I don't know that there's, to my knowledge, there isn't a performance difference either way. Not that I know of. I'm not 100% certain of that, but I don't think there's a difference.
I just read that if we use include, we can include like external file, yeah, not our own file, yeah, like another URL.
I've never tried. That may be the case. I've actually never tried that. I don't know. We'll have to try it. We'll have to test that out and see. It's a good question. But you have to be careful including external files because you only see the HTML. You don't know what the code is in behind them, right? So you don't know what will happen. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about error handling. Let's go back here. What kinds of things will go wrong when we build web applications and deploy them? What are some of the things that could happen that will cause our applications to crash? Some of them may be our responsibility, and some of them really aren't our responsibility. What can break them? Why do websites throw errors? Okay, so there might be, we may have written buggy code, right? That's certainly a possibility. What other things could happen if we haven't written buggy code? Yeah, servers can go offline. They can be restarted. What else could happen?
Maybe server doesn't support some PHP version.
Okay, could be. So we've written code in a certain version and that version gets upgraded. That code doesn't work anymore. It happens. Yeah, servers can be hacked. There can be denial of service. For sure. Anything else that could break it? Why do we close database connections? Right, so maybe sometimes we just have timeouts. There's servers are online, but they just can't handle the load. They can't handle the resources. They can't serve out information from the database if all those connections are being used. Okay. So there's all kinds of things that could happen, and you guys have kind of hit on them. So I've put these slides up in lesson 8. Users may also try to do things that we didn't think they would do. We try to test our application and someone does something we never tested for and they break something. That can happen. Okay. So we want to try to fix as many bugs as we can. We want to test our applications. Obviously, at some point we have to say we think this application's ready and we need to launch it. Otherwise, we're testing forever. Okay, we can never test everything, right? If you think about, you know, the biggest companies in the world like Apple and Microsoft, Google, like they're always putting out patches. Well, why are they putting out patches for their software? Well, because there's bugs in it. Well, you know what? If those companies are writing software with bugs in it, guess what? Chances are we're writing software with bugs in it too at some point. Okay? So what we need is we've got to have, it's not that we can guarantee things won't go wrong. We need to think about what should we do when things do go wrong, okay? Because things will happen. So here are some examples of you know, things users might do. Maybe we have file uploads and we're asking for Word documents. Somebody uploads an Excel file or a JPEG, or they decide to upload an executable file with a virus on it. We didn't expect that, right? Maybe we've set out a phone number format, thinking everybody who's going to have enter a phone number on our website has a North American phone number. And then someone from around the world stumbles on our site and they have different phone number format or postal code. They try and enter it in, they create an error in our application. We talked about the technical problems, internet connectivity, servers going out. Browser changes can break our code. Things, particularly our JavaScript, can break when new browsers come out, new versions of JavaScript. And certainly we have to deal with hackers. So SQL injection, cross-site scripting, DDoS, all these things. Passwords can be hacked. We get some HTTP status codes, right? 404 is the most common one when files aren't found. So we can trap for these error codes and show certain error messages. We're going to deal with 404 today. It's pretty easy. One line of code and a simple 404 page. So what should happen? Let's say the user clicks on a link. So I'm on this site. I'm on my beer store. I click beer listings, but our database connection is broken somehow. If I actually go in and change my connection, here, I'll make this, change my server address. Okay, try it this way. I'll change the credential. So my page kind of is incomplete here. What should happen if my page can't access the database? Should we show the user a half-completed page? Should we just show them something else? Robert? Yeah, we could do a redirect. And where should we redirect them? What would we expect to see? We could take them to the default page, or what would our other option be? Yeah, we could build a generic error page to show the user. So that's one of the things we want to do. We never wanted to show them half-completed pages. We certainly don't want them to see error messages. So typically we can expect to see an error page that has our site header and footer and kind of a friendly message on there. So we're going to need to build a error page, check if any errors have happened, and if an error has happened, we want to take the user off to that page. That's one of our error handling techniques. What else should we do in that case when an error happens? So let the user see a friendly page, but there's something else we need to do.
Maybe we would like to check the setup.
Okay, so absolutely, how are we going to do that, right? There may be thousands of people on our website, so we can take them to an error page, which is better than giving them this. So what options do we have? Okay, so that's one option, is we can create an error log. These are typically done with text files. We don't want to use the database to log the errors, typically. Why is logging errors in the database not such a good idea? Right, because maybe the error is we can't connect to the database. So if our database is down, we can't write error messages, and we can't write error logs in the database. So we can write them in a text file. That's a common method. Can you think of any other way that we might be able to find out that what errors are happening that might be even faster than writing them in an error log text file? What would be the quickest and easiest way for you to get notified that something went wrong on your website? Yeah. Send yourself an email with information about that error. Then you can go in and fix it. You don't have to look through logs. It arrives in your inbox. This also helps you look really good to your bosses and your clients. I've had all of my websites are set up that they always send me error messages whenever they happen. And actually, I can show you what one of these looks like. So I've had times where my client will call and say, I got an error on the website a little while ago. And I say, I know, I already fixed it. Well, you look good when that happens.
So if you have a big site with many users, it's like 1,000. Yeah?
Absolutely. When I built the site for Walmart, I used to get about 50 emails every night around 3 o'clock in the morning. And because I would send myself information about the errors, I could actually see, I would include things like what values are in the forms or what values were in the URL query strings. So when hackers would try SQL injection, I could actually see all of the SQL queries that they were trying because I would get them emailed to me and I could see them. You know, what does this look like? I probably have a sample here. If I go in and look for errors. So I still get these emailed to me every day. So here's an error. There's the error message. Here's a query string, so I know what page number and what listing the user was looking at. And I get the full trace of exactly what function on what page through this error. So now I know where to look and what to try. So I have tons of these in my inbox. Okay, well, this customer, you know, here, this order item, there's something wrong with it. Well, now I know what record in my database to go and look at, and I can maybe try this again. So all of these, you know, here's a great one. Here's an SQL injection attempt. So here was the form, and here was the URL they tried to spam my site with because it comes in my inbox because I'm trapping for all this stuff. So yes, you do get a lot of junk in here. I set up a separate mailbox. I don't send them to my main email. These go to a separate mailbox and I check it regularly to see, because most of the errors are things I don't need to worry about. But when there is something I need to worry about, I've got all this information here. So we want to set up all those things. The other thing we want to set up is 404 handling. You know, if I want to go here, this is the default 404 page that Apache gives us. Doesn't look very good. It doesn't really help our users. We want to set up a friendly 404 page. So we're going to do three things. We're going to set up a generic error page that if an error happens, we want to redirect our user to that page. We want to set up a 404 page and configure our server. If 404 errors happen, don't show the user this. Show them. I try and go here. Show them this instead. Show them a 404 page that has our header, has our footer, has a description. If the site breaks, show this instead of an error message or a partly completed page. And then send ourselves an email as well. None of this stuff's terribly complicated. We have plenty of time in the time we have left to do this. So the first thing we're going to do, let's deal with our generic error page. First thing I want you to do is go into your db.php and change something in your connection so that your database connection is going to fail. Okay? Just put a character in or change the password, do something to change your credentials in db.php. Then what we're going to do, we're going to build the generic error page. It's going to be almost identical to our default page. So then just go to your code on default.php, copy everything. We'll make a new PHP page called error. I'm going to paste in all of the code, and I'm just going to change the text on here. I'm going to change the title. Say, we'll just put on an error message. So it's a good idea to let users know that you're keeping track of the errors. They don't know whether we're emailing them or we're recording them in a log, just something that gives them some sense that, yes, we're tracking what's going on and we'll address the problem. Most users will tolerate mistakes if they know that you're going to do something to fix them. So there's our error page. So what we need to do now, this page won't load automatically. Our site, the server's not smart enough to know, okay, we broke the connection in db.php, so automatically show the error page. We're going to have to write a bit of code to make this happen. If I go back and refresh, my code stays here. It doesn't redirect me automatically. So PHP, like most other programming languages like Java, like C#, it has this coding structure called a try-catch block. Anybody ever seen these before, heard of try-catch? Few people. So what this basically means is we're going to try to run a bunch of code inside of this section. So try to connect to the database, run a query, and display the results. If any errors happen, that's what this catch block does. So if our code works, our code just runs through here and then it stops. But if any errors happen, our catch block will now trap what that error is, and then we can do something. So that will allow us to send ourselves an email and redirect the user to our error page. So any page where we're interacting with our database or doing any PHP processing, we're going to want to include one of these try-catch structures. We don't need this on our default page because we're not really doing anything. It's just a static page. So we're going to go into our, let's go to beers.php. So before we connect, because that's where the error is, our error could occur. What I'm going to do here before connect is open a try block and open a set of curly braces. I don't want to close it. I just want to open it here. So try connecting, querying the database, outputting the results. I'm just going to indent that stuff. And after I close my table, I'm going to close my try block here. So try to run all of this code. And now, if an error happens, another word for error is an exception. And I'm just going to represent it with a variable called $e. So if an error happens, it's represented by our E variable. We could call that error, you can call it whatever you want. So in this case, if we get an error, redirect to the error page. So we'll use header. So if anything is wrong in that code, we're going to get taken off to our error page. So again, my try starts here before we connect, and it goes all the way down to after we've ended our table. Try to do all that stuff and trap for errors. If I refresh my beer listings page now, I should get taken to my error page. Let's see what happens. So my database connection's still broken. I've got the wrong password. Now when I click, beer listings, instead of my partially server, you will get a different error. Anybody get an error that says cannot redirect, HTTP headers already sent? Okay. If you've got that error, we need to do something before we redirect, something at the very top and very bottom of the file. We did this several weeks ago when we redirected on our delete page, right? Here we're using redirect, but in order to redirect, we need to use our output buffer at the start and flush the buffer at the bottom. So if you're getting that message you can't redirect, we need OB start on line 1 and OB flush at the bottom. I don't need it on mine, but if I put it on DreamHost, I will. So line 1 is OB start. Very first line with no white space. And the very last line of your file should be OB flush. Then try it again and it should work. So after my footer, I'm going to call OB flush. So this works on our beer listings. Add beer loads, because when I click it, we're not using the database. We only use the database when I've clicked edit. My database isn't connecting here, so this page is still going to work for now. I'm going to go back to my db.php for a minute. So what we should be doing is including try catch blocks on all of our beer pages. So on delete, right at the top, I want try. And again, I want to catch any exceptions that happen. I would do the same on save, and I would do the same on beer.php. All of my pages should have try catch blocks. Typically, we add these at the end. We don't want to add try catch blocks as we're building our pages. When we're developing, it's better to let the errors happen so we can find them and fix them. Typically, adding the error handling is usually the last thing we do once we've done all our testing and we've fixed as many of the bugs as we can. Let's also add the ability to send ourselves an email. So before we redirect, let's send ourselves the error. Put in an email address that you own. It probably won't work with your Georgian email for some reason. So lesson, I'll call it that. Beer store error. And then as the body, the message body, will send in our error variable. That will give us the error message. It'll tell us what the error was, what the page was, and what line number on that page that error message got generated. Now I'm working on my local server. I'm not sure if this will actually send an email or not. I'm going to try it. I may have to put it on DreamHost in order for that email to get sent. So first send ourselves information about the email and then show our error page. I'm going to try it and see. I have a feeling I will have to upload this to the server in order for that email to work. So I'll try it online. I have my local database connection, which won't work. I can go to my home page, that works, but when I try to go here, get my error page, I have to see whether. So here, is my error. So I got connection refused because I can't connect to that database on my db.php on line 3. So now I know where to look. I know, hey, someone was on my website. They were on this page. This is the error they got. This is the line number that generated the error. Now I can go in and see what's going on, right? Is the server down? Did I make a mistake? Do I have to call the hosting company? At least I have a place to start, and I'm aware of the problem immediately. As soon as that error happens, I'm informed 5 seconds later. So please make sure in your code you're emailing yourself and not me. Okay. I'm gonna put this back. I'm gonna fix my database credential now because I want to actually be able to use my application. But I should have all these try-catch blocks. So on my save page, I'm going to do the same thing. Try to do all this stuff. But again, catch any exception. Send myself an email and take the user. So I'll want this on all 4 of my beer pages. Anything breaks, show the user the error page and send me an email. And the nice thing about try-catch is it's portable to other languages. Like I said, C# uses it, Java uses it. Pretty much all C-based languages have this try-catch ability. There's one gotcha with this. I'm going to go back to my beers.php. So I fixed my connection. My beers.php should be working now. There's one thing it won't fix. So let's say I leave off a semicolon or leave out a bracket or a quote. Now I just got this. Try-catch is not designed to handle syntax errors. It's not interpreting your syntax. So if you miss a bracket, quote, semicolon, it doesn't throw an exception that can be caught and handled. Okay? So you still have to do your syntax checking yourself. This is what your editor's for. Notice I get a red squiggly line here. So it's telling me there's something wrong with my syntax right here. When I put that semicolon in, that line goes away. Or if I leave out a quote, all that yellow highlighting is indicating to me in these red lines something's missing. So we've done mostly what we need to do. We're checking for errors, we're notifying ourselves, we're taking the user off to a friendly page. In fact, let's see. I'm going to go back to Font Awesome for a second. Maybe I'll go to Web Application. I wonder if they even have an error icon. Well, they've got this one. Maybe the exclamation circle. We could even include that on our error page. So FA exclamation circle. So on my error here, maybe before my title, we'll put in a My class equals FA. You can get a little icon from Font Awesome, the exclamation circle. Which I need to spell correctly. So now if I go back to my error page, oh, I want to work locally. All right, well, my icon doesn't look very good there. I have to put it somewhere else or take it out. Okay, I'll take out my icon for now and leave it. So there's only one other thing we need to do. We still need to deal with a 404 error because that try catch, though it only fires if the user's on one of these pages and has an error. If they go to some page that doesn't exist, like I try to go to search, we still get this. So what we want to do, we typically make two error pages. We make a generic error page that we've already created, our error.php. We also typically make a 404 page. They will look almost identical, but they should have different messages. So I'm going to copy everything from my error page. We'll make one new file. We'll call it 404. I'll paste it in. I'm just going to change the title. Say not found. Now in this case, we don't need to use try catch. We don't need to set up an error email. We certainly don't want to be I don't want to be notified by email every time there's a 404 error on my sites. We just need to redirect the user. So the question is, how do we do this? Try catch isn't going to work because they're asking for a page name that doesn't exist. Now, if you have a hosting plan with a hosting company, they will typically give you in their hosting control panel the ability to configure any URL as your 404 page. So here with these guys, who are a very good host, based out in Saskatchewan, I use them for many of my client sites. We can set up custom error pages. So for any domain, you just specify if a 404 not found, I just specify the URL of a page. So most hosts will give us access to just configure it this way. Build the file, upload it to the server, and set the URL here. That's really easy. On DreamHost, we don't have access to the DreamHost control panel, so we can't set it here. But we can override the server settings. So what we need to do is make one more file. Choose new file, but don't make it a PHP file. I'm just going to choose new file. And this file name has a particular name because it's an Apache server configuration file. Anybody know what that file is called? You got it. So the file name is .htaccess. 2 C's and 2 S's. Now, if you're a Mac user, you won't see this file on your file system. Mac OS will treat this as a hidden file because there's no characters before the dot. So .htaccess. So this allows us to override the default Apache settings. So what we want to set up here is an error document for the error code 404. All we need to do now is enter the URL to our 404 page. This is my page. 404.php. If you're working locally, you can just use a local file path. If you're on DreamHost, then this would be gcxxxx.computerstudies, and then the path to your 404 page. So this tells the Apache server if a 404 HTTP status code is generated, redirect the user to that URL. So it's error, document, and then a space, 404, and then a space, and then your URL doesn't need to be in quotes.
How do you find out your local host number? Is it over the 800?
No, I changed mine. You normally don't need it. Normally port 80 is the default. So it's whatever your URL is here, whatever you're using in your browser. So what I want is I want it to automatically redirect any 404 requests here. So now if I go to search, it keeps me on 404. Let's say I accidentally capitalize one of the names. Oh, actually I'm on Windows, so that will work. Find beers.php. Any URL that doesn't exist, it redirects me to 404. So these aren't terribly complicated error handling techniques. They're fairly basic, but these are all things we should be doing on all of our sites. Using try-catch to take users to a generic error page, setting up a 404 page, and configuring our server to use it, as well as setting up some way to keep track of the errors, whether we're writing those to a log file, sending them to ourselves by email, or something else. One of the neat things we'll do in the fall with ASP.NET, there's actually a built-in error log. All we have to do is plug it in, and whenever an error happens, it automatically writes it, and it creates web pages where we can search those logs. It's all automated, which is really neat, very useful. So all of the things we've done today, I think next week I'm going to give you assignment 2, so be sure to be here. And all the stuff we've done today will be part of assignment 2. You're going to need to build a new application that has a header and a footer that are shared, and you'll need to implement proper error handling. One of the things I'll try to do when I mark it is try to break it. Can I crash your site? And if I do I get the error page? If I go to a page name that doesn't exist, will I get a friendly 404 page with your header, your footer, and CSS, so it looks just like any other page in your site? Okay. These techniques aren't terribly complicated. They don't change very much from one application to another, but they're pretty much standard operating procedure. They're things we're going to need to do. Which brings me to your lab. You do have a lab due Friday night. Let's have a quick look at it. So here's lab 3. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your assignment 1 that you submitted, and I want you to add the error handling techniques we just went through in this last hour. So you have 3 pages, right? You have a form that has a drop-down list, you have a save page, and you have an HTML table that shows all the data in your database. I want you to add try-catch blocks to those pages. And if an error or an exception happens, I want you to build a error.php and redirect me off to the error.php page. I also want you to send yourself an email so you'll know when I'm testing your site out. If I manage to break it successfully, you get an email from your site. You also have to build a 404 error page and add the htaccess file. So if I go to your assignment 1 and put in a page name that doesn't exist, I get redirected to the 404 page. Okay. You don't have to build a header and footer for the lab. Your assignment has no header and footer, so don't worry about that. Your 404 page can just say, page not found. Your error page can say, this is the error page. There doesn't have to be any header, footer, styling. Okay. If you don't have a completed assignment 1 to submit, you can do this with lab 2. Okay, if you did lab 2, there are 4 pages in lab 2, so you can submit lab 2 back to me with error handling. So try catch blocks, generic error page, error emails, and 404. So all you need to do is add those things, zip up the assignment, submit it on Blackboard by Friday night, and please include a link to your lab. Okay, so 2.5%. That is it for today.